In the middle of the day, when the sun is high and the streets are full of life, there's a false sense of safety. We believe that darkness protects the predator, that evil waits for shadows to commit its sins. But on April 18th, 2025, in the heart of Southeast Washington, D.C., that illusion shattered at exactly 12:24 in the afternoon. 3 people were shot in broad daylight on a residential street. 2 would survive to tell a story they've chosen not to share. 1 would never speak again. His name was Christopher Daniels. He was 18 years old. And in the 6 months since his blood stained the pavement behind 1300 Congress Street, not a single person has been arrested. Not a single suspect has been named. The person who executed him in the middle of the day walked away into the light and vanished. This is the story of a murder that happened in full view of a community and the deafening silence that followed. Congress Heights sits in Ward 8 of Washington, D.C., southeast of the Anacostia River, in a part of the city that tourists never see and politicians rarely visit. It's a neighborhood where poverty and violence have become so commonplace that they've woven themselves into the fabric of daily life. By April of 2025, Congress Heights had already seen 9 homicides clustered within just a few blocks, the highest concentration in the entire district. The crime rate here hovers at 76.29 per 1,000 residents. For context, that's nearly 5 times the rate of the city's wealthier northwestern neighborhoods. This isn't a statistic. This is a reality that families wake up to every morning, wondering if today is the day they'll lose someone they love. Christopher Daniels grew up in this world. He was a young man from Southeast D.C., navigating the impossible mathematics of survival in a place where the odds are deliberately stacked against you. 18 years old, an age when most young people are planning their futures, applying to colleges, falling in love, making mistakes that don't cost them their lives. Christopher was still writing his story. He had family who loved him. He had friends who knew his laugh. He had a future that existed in potential, in possibility, in all the small moments that make up a life. But on April 18th, someone decided that Christopher Daniels didn't deserve to see 19. The day started like any other Friday in Congress Heights. Spring had arrived in D.C. The trees were blooming, the temperature was climbing into the comfortable 70s, and people were out on the streets, moving through their routines. At approximately 12:24 in the afternoon, in the 1300 block of Savannah Place Southeast, gunfire erupted. Multiple shots. The sharp, unmistakable crack of a weapon discharging again and again. This wasn't a single shot fired in panic or anger. This was sustained. This was intentional. And when the echoes faded and the gun smoke cleared, 3 people had been hit. 2 of them, an adult male and a juvenile male, managed to get themselves up, managed to move, managed to survive. They didn't wait for ambulances. They didn't wait for police. They transported themselves to area hospitals, where doctors treated them for injuries that, mercifully, weren't life-threatening. They would live, but they would also choose, for reasons we can only speculate about, not to cooperate fully with investigators. The code of the streets, the understanding that talking to police can be more dangerous than the bullet itself, held firm. But Christopher Daniels couldn't get up. officers from the Metropolitan Police Department's 7th District arrived at the scene to find him at the rear of the 1300 block of Congress Street Southeast, unconscious and not breathing. DC Fire and Emergency Medical Services rushed to his side, working desperately to pull him back from the edge. They performed every protocol, every emergency procedure designed to restart a heart, to restore breath, to reverse the irreversible. But the damage was too catastrophic. The wounds were too severe. At 12:24 p.m. on a sunny Friday afternoon, surrounded by the ordinary sounds of a neighborhood going about its day, Christopher Daniels was pronounced dead. He became the 40th homicide victim in Washington, D.C. that year, the 9th in Congress Heights, the second person killed in a triple shooting in Southeast D.C. that very day. Just 13 hours earlier, at 1:15 a.m., another triple shooting had occurred in the 2000 block of 19th Place Southeast. 3 more victims. 3 more families thrown into chaos. The violence was so routine, so relentless, that Christopher's death barely registered beyond the immediate community. A press release, a case number, a statistic. But someone out there knows this wasn't random. Someone knows exactly what happened in that 1300 block. Because murders in broad daylight don't happen in a vacuum. They happen because someone made a decision. Someone planned. Someone armed themselves. Someone walked up to 3 people in the middle of the day and opened fire. And then someone walked away. The Metropolitan Police Department launched an immediate investigation, but they were working against the most formidable enemy in urban homicide cases: silence. The 2 survivors weren't talking. Witnesses, if they existed, weren't coming forward. In neighborhoods like Congress Heights, cooperation with law enforcement is complicated by decades of mistrust, by fear of retaliation, by the bone-deep knowledge that when you talk to police, you paint a target on your own back. The blue wall of silence that protects bad cops has a mirror image in these streets. A wall built not from corruption, but from survival. Detective units canvassed the area. They knocked on doors. They reviewed surveillance footage from nearby businesses and residential cameras. They interviewed anyone who might have seen something, heard something, knew something. They followed the standard protocols: ballistics analysis, forensic evidence collection, witness statements, timeline reconstruction. But in the absence of cooperation, in the absence of someone willing to break the silence, even the most thorough investigation can stall. The Metropolitan Police Department issued a public bulletin complete with Christopher's photograph, a young man with his whole life ahead of him, frozen now in a single image that would become synonymous with his death. They announced a reward, up to $25,000, for information leading to an arrest and conviction in his murder. $25,000, a life-changing amount of money for anyone in Congress Heights. And yet, 6 months later, that reward remains unclaimed. The silence remains unbroken. Why? What kind of fear keeps an entire community quiet when a teenager is executed in broad daylight? The answer is as simple as it is heartbreaking: the fear of being next. In neighborhoods where violence is endemic, where justice is inconsistent, where police can't guarantee protection even when they want to, speaking up can be a death sentence. So people swallow their knowledge. They carry their secrets. They attend funerals and say nothing, and killers walk free. But let's be clear about something. This silence doesn't mean Christopher's death doesn't matter. It doesn't mean people don't care. It means they're trapped in a system that has failed them so comprehensively, so repeatedly, that survival requires complicity. The real tragedy isn't that witnesses won't talk. The real tragedy is that they can't afford to. So who killed Christopher Daniels? That's the question that haunts every unsolved homicide. Was this gang-related? A territorial dispute over drug markets in a neighborhood where the underground economy thrives because the legitimate one has abandoned it? Was it personal? A grudge? A betrayal? A debt that someone decided to collect with bullets instead of words? Was it a case of mistaken identity? Christopher caught in crossfire, meant for someone else, his life ending because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was it something else entirely? Something we can't even begin to guess at because the investigation has hit a wall of silence so impenetrable that detectives are left grasping at shadows. The two other victims, the ones who survived, hold pieces of this puzzle. They know who fired. They know why. They might even know where the shooter is right now. But they're not telling. And we can judge them for that. Or we can try to understand the impossible position they're in. In Congress Heights, retaliation is real. Witness protection is a fantasy. Police can't be everywhere. And when you testify against someone, their friends, their family, their associates, don't forget, you become a target. Your family becomes a target. Your home becomes a marked location. So you make a choice: justice for Christopher or survival for yourself. It's not a fair choice, but it's the one these survivors are facing every single day. Meanwhile, Christopher's family is left with nothing but grief and questions. They buried an 18-year-old son, brother, cousin, friend. They stood over his casket and said goodbye to a young man who should have been planning his 20th birthday, not lying in the ground. And every day since, they've woken up knowing that somewhere in Washington, D.C., the person who killed their child is still breathing, still walking, still living a life that Christopher was denied. There's a unique cruelty to an unsolved homicide. When someone is caught, tried, and convicted, there's a sense, however incomplete, of closure. The system, flawed as it is, has acknowledged that a wrong was committed and a price must be paid. But when a case remains unsolved, when months turn into years with no arrests, the wound never closes. It stays raw. It stays fresh. Every day is the day Christopher died. The investigation officially remains open. That's what the Metropolitan Police Department will tell you if you call them. Case number 2025, HOM 040425 is still active. Detectives are still following leads. They're still waiting for that crucial piece of information. The phone call, the anonymous tip, the moment of conscience when someone decides that the truth is more important than fear. But statistically, we know that the longer a homicide goes unsolved, the less likely it is to ever be solved. The trail grows cold, memories fade, people move away, evidence degrades, and eventually, Christopher Daniels' case file gets buried under the weight of new homicides, new investigations, new tragedies demanding attention. By the end of 2025, Washington, D.C. will record over 200 homicides. Congress Heights will account for a disproportionate number of them. Most will be young men of color, killed by other young men of color, in disputes over territory, money, respect, or perceived slights that escalate into lethal violence. The media will cover them with decreasing interest. The public will grow numb, and families will keep burying their children, knowing that justice is a luxury their neighborhood can't afford. But here's what we need to understand. Christopher Daniels was not a statistic. He was not inevitable. He was a person, a young man with dreams, fears, aspirations, and flaws, just like anyone else. He deserved to live past 18. He deserved to make mistakes and learn from them. He deserved to fall in love, start a family, find a career, experience joy and heartbreak, and all the messy, beautiful complexity of a full life. And someone took that from him in the middle of the day on a residential street, in a neighborhood that has seen so much death that it's become almost invisible. The triple shooting that killed Christopher was the second such incident in Southeast DC that very day. Think about that for a moment. 2 triple shootings, 6 victims in less than 12 hours, in one section of one American city. This isn't a crime problem. This is a societal failure. It's the result of decades of disinvestment, segregation, economic abandonment, and policy decisions that have concentrated poverty, limited opportunity, and normalized violence to the point where an 18-year-old getting killed at noon doesn't even warrant sustained media attention. And yet, even in this environment, Christopher's death is notable for one reason: the absolute, suffocating silence that has surrounded it. No suspect, no motive, no breaks in the case, just a young man dead, and a community that knows more than it's saying. So what happens now? The Metropolitan Police Department continues to ask for information. The $25,000 reward remains on the table. Christopher's family continues to grieve and demand answers. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., a killer continues to live their life, secure in the knowledge that fear is a more powerful force than justice. But unsolved doesn't mean forgotten. It doesn't mean the case is closed. It means that someone, somewhere, is carrying the weight of what they know. Maybe it's the shooter, replaying that moment, wondering if they'll ever face consequences. Maybe it's a witness, wrestling with conscience and fear. Maybe it's one of the 2 survivors, living with the knowledge that their silence is protecting a murderer. Whoever they are, they hold the key to this case. They hold the power to give Christopher's family the one thing they're desperately seeking: answers. In the world of criminal investigations, we like to believe that the truth always comes out, that forensic science and good detective work will eventually crack every case. But the reality is messier and far less satisfying. Some cases are solved decades later, when technology advances or someone's conscience finally breaks. Some are solved when criminals brag about their crimes to the wrong person, or when relationships fall apart and angry ex-partners turn into cooperative witnesses. And some are never solved at all. They remain open wounds in the fabric of families and communities, permanent reminders that justice is not guaranteed. Christopher Daniels' case sits in that uncertain territory right now. It could be solved tomorrow if someone picks up the phone and calls the Metropolitan Police Department's tip line. It could be solved years from now if new technology allows investigators to re-examine evidence in ways that weren't possible in 2025. Or it could join the ranks of thousands of unsolved homicides across America. Cases where we know someone died, but we never know who killed them or why. What we do know is this. On April 18th, 2025, in the 1300 block of Congress Street Southeast, a young man named Christopher Daniels was shot multiple times in broad daylight. He died at the scene. 2 other people were wounded, but survived. And in the 6 months since, despite a $25,000 reward, despite an active police investigation, despite the desperate pleas of a grieving family, not a single suspect has been identified. The person who pulled that trigger is still out there, still free, still unpunished. And that should terrify all of us, not just because it means a killer is walking free, but because it reveals the depth of the dysfunction in our most vulnerable communities. When an 18-year-old can be executed at noon on a residential street and no one will talk, when fear overpowers the pursuit of justice so completely that a murder goes unsolved despite multiple witnesses, when a life can be ended with such brutal efficiency and such casual impunity, we're not looking at a crime problem. We're looking at a social catastrophe. Congress Heights deserves better. Christopher Daniels deserved better. His family deserves better. And until someone finds the courage to speak up, until someone decides that justice for Christopher matters more than their own safety, this case will remain what it is right now, a haunting mystery, a brutal execution with no resolution, a young life ended, and no one held accountable. The Metropolitan Police Department asks that anyone with information about the shooting death of Christopher Daniels contact them at 202-727-9099. Anonymous tips can be sent via text message to the department's text tip line at 50411. There is a reward of up to $25,000 for information that leads to an arrest and conviction. Christopher Daniels was 18 years old. He lived in Southeast Washington, D.C. He was killed on April 18th, 2025 at 12:24 in the afternoon. His murderer has never been caught. His case remains unsolved, and every day that passes without answers is another day that justice is denied, not just to Christopher, but to a community that has seen too much death and too little accountability. Someone knows what happened that day. Someone knows who pulled the trigger. Someone knows why Christopher died. And until they speak, until they find the courage to break the silence, this case will remain exactly what it is, a devastating reminder that in some parts of America, you can kill someone in broad daylight and simply walk away. The question that haunts this case isn't whether it can be solved, it's whether anyone will ever care enough or feel safe enough to help solve it. And that question, more than any other, reveals the true tragedy of Christopher Daniels' death. He didn't just lose his life that day. He became another casualty in a war that most of America doesn't even acknowledge is being fought. His story doesn't end with resolution. It doesn't end with justice. It ends with a photograph on a police bulletin, a reward that no one has claimed, and a family still waiting for answers that may never come. That's the real horror of this case, not the violence itself, but the silence that followed. Not the murder, but the fact that no one has been held accountable. Not the death of one young man, but what his unsolved killing says about how little certain lives are valued in this country. Christopher Daniels mattered. His life had meaning. His death demands justice. And somewhere out there, someone knows how to give it to him. The question is, will they? Or will Christopher become another name on a long list of forgotten victims? Another unsolved case file gathering dust in a police archive. Another young black man whose murder was deemed less important than the fear that keeps witnesses silent. That answer, ultimately, isn't up to investigators. It's up to whoever is carrying the truth. And every day they stay silent is another day that Christopher's killer walks free, and another day that a family's grief goes unanswered. 6 months have passed since Christopher Daniels was killed. The seasons have changed. Spring became summer. Summer became fall. Life moved on for everyone except Christopher and the people who loved him. For them, time stopped at 12:24 p.m. on April 18th, 2025. For them, every day is that day. Every day is the day they lost him. Every day is the day justice failed. And until someone speaks up, that's where this story stays, frozen in an unresolved tragedy, waiting for the one thing that can move it forward, the truth. In the end, that's what all unsolved cases come down to. Not sophisticated forensics or brilliant detective work, just someone, somewhere, deciding that the truth is more important than fear, that justice matters more than survival, that Christopher Daniels' life was worth more than the silence that has surrounded his death. The Metropolitan Police Department believes that someone out there has that information. They're waiting for the phone to ring. They're waiting for the text message to arrive. They're waiting for that crucial break that will finally allow them to give Christopher's family what they desperately need: answers, accountability, and the knowledge that their son's life mattered enough for justice to be served. But as the months stretch into years, as the case grows colder and the public attention fades, the harsh reality sets in. Some murders are never solved. Some killers are never caught. Some families never get closure. And Christopher Daniels' case might be one of them. Unless someone finds the courage to speak, the question isn't whether the truth will set them free. The question is whether they'll ever feel safe enough to tell it. And that question, haunting and unanswerable, is where this story rests tonight. Not in resolution, but in the terrible, suffocating silence that has defined this case from the beginning. Christopher Daniels, 18 years old, shot and killed in broad daylight. April 18th, 2025, Congress Heights, Southeast Washington, D.C. Case unsolved. Killer unknown. Justice denied. That's not the ending this story deserves, but it's the only ending we have. For now, someone out there can change that. Someone can give Christopher's family the justice they're desperate for. Someone can break the silence that has allowed a murderer to walk free for 6 months. Someone can make sure that Christopher Daniels' death actually matters in a system that treats young black lives as disposable statistics. That someone might be listening right now. They might be wrestling with conscience and fear. They might be wondering if it's worth it to speak up. And to them, we can only say this: Christopher Daniels can't speak for himself anymore. He can't demand justice. He can't tell his own story. He's gone, but you're still here. You still have a voice. You still have a choice. And every day you stay silent is another day that his killer wins. The truth is waiting to be told. The question is whether anyone will ever tell it. And that uncertainty, that haunting, unresolved possibility, is where Christopher Daniels' story ends. Not with answers, but with an aching absence of them. Not with justice, but with the desperate hope that someday, somehow, it might still arrive. But hope, as anyone in Congress Heights can tell you, is a luxury, and justice in neighborhoods like this is even rarer. Christopher Daniels deserved better. He deserved to live, and if we can't give him that, the very least we owe him is the truth. The very least. Some cases end with handcuffs and courtroom verdicts. Others end with questions that echo in the dark, waiting for someone brave enough to answer them. Christopher Daniels is waiting. His family is waiting. Justice is waiting. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., so is the truth. If you found this story haunting, don't stop here. Watch our next case, where another hidden truth finally comes to light, and discover what happens when silence is finally broken and justice, however delayed, finds its way home.